today's students' talk show session titled Learning Method and Sharing of Experience from European Law School, held by Legal Education, Ethics and Professionalism, or short for LEAP, under the Orange Knowledge Program, a collaboration between Universitas Airlangga and also Maastricht University. My name is Arya, again, as you might have seen me previously, from batch 2020, and I will be moderating today's session. Selamat siang dan selamat datang teman-teman semua di sesi sharing untuk mahasiswa. Nama saya Arya dari angkatan 2020 selaku moderator untuk sesi hari ini. Hari ini saya yang bergabung dengan saya. Today I'm joined with our discussants, two of our wonderful guests who have come all this way from Maastricht University. First we have Professor Fokke, and we also have Dr. Sascha Hardt. Please give them a huge round of applause. And also, I'm also joined with two students here. We have Aqiila, a bachelor student from Universitas Airlangga who also pursued a double degree program in Maastricht University. And also joining with us virtually, we have Annida, an alumni of Universitas Airlangga who is currently pursuing her master's degree at Utrecht University. Thank you for joining us today. In today's discussion, I will alternate between Bahasa Indonesia and English, depending on the flow of the discussion and for the convenience of everyone here. And so if the discussants, as well as the participants here, want to use either languages, that would be fine. Jadi hari ini saya akan bergantian dengan menggunakan bahasa Inggris dan bahasa Indonesia tergantung kepentingan moderasi. Now, first, a little bit of background about this, why we are holding this talk show session. Jadi kita semua tahu kalau Indonesia itu negara hukum, dan eksistensi negara hukum itu, the existence of a country based on the rule of law is inevitably affected by legal education in the country, who will ultimately shape students like us to become future lawyers, jurists, judges, politicians, etc. And as students, how can we contribute to this legal education system? What can we offer, and which type of learning process best fits the legal needs, in particular, of the country and also beyond? And so today's session will revolve around these questions, and our discussants today will be happy to share their experiences involved in the learning curriculum and method of European law schools. And so without further ado, let us first, I'm informed that we will first hear from Professor Fokke first. Oh, okay, so, okay, all right. Okay, first, okay. Okay, so first we will have Aqiila to first maybe introduce yourselves and yeah.
Hello, does it work? Okay. Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Farani. I'm a bachelor student in Airlangga University and Maastricht University of the Netherlands. And this afternoon I will share my experience about my double degree study in the Netherlands in Maastricht University. Okay, so there are a couple of things. Ada beberapa hal.
You want to show your presentation?
I don't
Slide.
think it's necessary.
Oh, okay,
I think.
Because otherwise you can log in the Zoom session and share your presentation.
Oh, okay. Maybe. Okay, 1 second, everyone. Yeah. Okay, first of all, hal yang menurut saya paling membantu, yang paling helpful di Maastricht University is the well-structured and accessible curriculum. I don't know why this happened. 1 second. Or maybe it's best to not to just speak without the PowerPoint.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It's better
Yeah, it
to
doesn't work. Okay.
Yeah, it worked, but then it's
Yeah.
change slides spontaneously.
Okay. Jadi pertama yang menurut saya sangat helpful dan sangat sangat useful dari Maastricht University untuk mahasiswa adalah the well-structured and accessible curriculum. Jadi 2 minggu atau setidaknya 1 minggu sebelum period baru dimulai, kami akan menerima namanya syllabus. Syllabus itu berisi pertama teaching method, terus course setup, list of literature, terus habis itu ada assessment method. Jadi dari awal perkuliahan itu kami sudah dikasih tahu how will the final exam be? Like, is it gonna be written exam or is it? Okay.
Is that the problem?
Yeah, no, it's not a problem.
Sorry, I'm interfering all the
No,
time.
no, it's okay. Okay, so 2 weeks or at least a week before the period starts, we, the student, we will receive a syllabus, which comprises of the teaching method. Is it going to be a PBL system, and then it's going to be there's also the course setup. Is it going to be online, or is it going to be offline or hybrid? And then there's going to be a list of literature and assessment methods and grade proportions. So from the start of the period, or even before, we already know what's the assessment method is going to be. Is it going to be a written exam, or is it going to be a paper? So that's really helpful. And lastly, the thing that I find really important is the week-per-week tutorial materials. So basically, what needs to be prepared before going to class. Because tutorial classes in Maastricht, we use a PBL system, a problem-based learning system. So the students are expected to be prepared all the time before going to class. So in the syllabus, it is provided a reading materials. So for example, you need to go to Canvas. In UNAIR is like the cyber campus of UNAIR is, we call it Canvas, and we need to watch a video there, or there's also like a textbook materials. Which chapters do we need to read for that week, and from which page to which page do we need to read to before attending the class? And then there's also self-study questions. These self-study questions are not going to be discussed in the class. Well, it depends on the tutor. If the tutor wants to discuss it, then we're going to discuss it. But most of the time, we're not going to discuss the self-study questions. So the self-study questions, it functions purely to guide the students in self-study. So yeah. And then lastly, in the syllabus, we have problem task, or the mood cases. So these mood cases, or pretend cases, is going to be discussed. Is the one that is going to be discussed in the tutorial forum. So how to apply the theories that we learned from lectures or from the reading materials we read before and that are provided in the syllabus, and to apply it to the real case. So, and also the problem task from week 1 throughout week 7, throughout the courses, it's already provided in the syllabus. So for example, I have something to do on week 3, so I can't prepare for week 3. I can just prepare it from week 1 because I already have the materials. I already have the things that I need to do in the syllabus. And also in Maastricht University, there are 2 teaching methods. So first, the lectures. So lectures is like what we have here. So it's a one-way teaching. We come to class, we sit down and we take notes, and the teacher will teach us something. But we also have tutorials, the problem-based learning. And in tutorials, we usually have a discussion leader. It can be the discussion leader can be from the tutor themselves or from the students. And they're going to lead the discussion on the problem task. And then there are some things that I found really different from Airlangga University. First, majority of the courses doesn't have attendance, mandatory attendance. So we are not required to come to class. Well, we are encouraged to come to class, but if we don't, it won't affect our final grade. It's like, unlike in Airlangga, we need 75% of attendance to do the final exam, right? Yeah, so we don't have that in Maastricht. Well, some courses have, such as the moot court training have the mandatory attendance, but most of the courses, they don't have the requirement. And then it also applied to lectures. So all lectures are recorded. And it will be published and accessible to all the students. So what can be concluded is that I think students in Maastricht University, they are free to choose their own method of learning. So even if it means that they want to study themselves and not going to class, and it's fine. And lastly, tutorial assignments and discussions is not graded mostly, except for some presentations. So it depends on the students if they want to do the assignments, do the preparations or not. But of course, it is very helpful to prepare, because if you don't prepare and then you come to class anyway, and then it's not going to be, then you're not going to get anything from the discussion, because you're not going to understand anything that will be discussed in the discussion. And also some tutors, I believe that some tutors also say that if you're not prepared, it's better for you to stay home, because by going to class unprepared, it's just going to be a waste of time for you and a waste of time for the people to the students in the forum. And then there are some things that I learned in Maastricht. First of all, is that establishing a comfortable and safe environment in class will enable students to be more engaged in class discussion. So for me, the most memorable thing is that one of the tutors in Maastricht University, he has the habit. So 5 minutes before, in the beginning of the tutorial, he always asked us something that is not relevant to the material. So for example, he asked us before, like, okay, what do you think about yesterday's Johnny Depp situation? And then we're going to discuss something, and then we're going to sound our opinion about Johnny Depp, which is irrelevant to the material. But then that icebreaker will enable us to understand that, okay, we are in a safe environment, and we are welcome to sound our opinion, and it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to say anything, basically. So yeah, and then also I think for me, the PBL system really do help in understanding the material better, more than the one-way teaching method. So maybe it's because in PBL system, I do everything by myself. So I learn by myself. I do my own research, and I answer the questions myself. So it's more understandable for me, and it's more I think it's more understandable for me instead of just receiving information from the lecture. And lastly, I think time management. In Maastricht University, we use period system instead of the semester system. So it means that we need to finish 3 courses in 3 months rather than 8 courses in 1 semester. At first, it was very hard for me to follow this structure because I was very used to the system in UNAIR, which used the semester system. But as the time goes, I think I can get used to it. So yeah, and I learned how to do better time management, and I think that's it. That's all from me. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Kaya. Now, before we move forward to the next discussion, I would like to maybe point out a few interesting questions from your PowerPoint, from your presentation, I mean. So one of the points that you said was that students are, attendance is relatively irrelevant to whether or not a student will pass. But you also mentioned that there is a PBL system, which I think requires the student to be present. So does this mean that during the a session where they have PBL, they have to attend the session, or are they still free to choose?
They are free to choose.
Also, you can not attend.
So I have some friends that they're not comfortable with the PBL system. They are more comfortable with the traditional one-way lecturing system. So they only attend the lecture and skip all the tutorials. I mean, if it works for them, then they are able to do that, to skip the classes. But they're not going to miss anything because of the syllabus. They have all the materials in the syllabus, so they can just study themselves.
I'm pretty sure that they will copy everything that has been said and done in the tutorial meetings from other students. Yeah. Because otherwise they don't know how to apply the law that is studied in the books on the cases.
Yeah.
So in fact they do everything everybody is doing in the tutorial group, but they do it for themselves without being present. But in fact they don't skip the tutorial group. That is what I wanted to say, because I cannot imagine that you could study in Maastricht without knowing how to apply the materials on a case, and you get cases all the time. I don't know how it works. Sorry.
I would also like to submit that I think we can contradict the statement that going or not going to tutorials has no bearing on passing the course. I don't think that's the case.
On the grade, has no bearing on the grade, but that's what I think, that you will not pass the course if you don't go to the tutorials or know exactly what happened, because I know those students, they copy everything from someone else.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think going to tutorial, of course, is more beneficial than not going to tutorial, but I think what I'm saying is that it's not going to affect your final. I mean, it's going to affect your final grade because you're not going to get the same understanding as those who attend the tutorial, but it's not going to affect your grades in the sense that your attendance will not stand in between.
Yeah.
It's not going to prevent you from.
It's not part of your grades.
Yeah, exactly. It's not gonna. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay.
And I have another question. Do you think that every student could do it that way, or were they specifically very skilled, the students you know who skipped everything, or were?
Of course, very skilled.
They were very skilled.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because when I studied, I never went to anything, so I passed everything cum laude. That saved me time. But that's because I am cerdas. You know, I'm bright.
Yeah.
But a normal student should not do it that way. Oh, that's very important for us, right?
I think it's also important that also, well, there are exceptions, of course, and I also, when I was a student, I also by far didn't attend every tutorial. However, it's also important that the bright students come to the tutorials because it's also about the exchange. Yeah. It's not only about every.
You went to the you're a bright student.
You did go to my tutorial, so that.
Yeah, right, great.
No, I went to your lectures.
You only went to my lectures?
No, I don't have you as my tutor.
Okay.
I had Prashant.
Right. Okay. Then you did go to my lectures.
I did attend your lectures.
Yes.
And Professor Harry.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, thank you. We will first move maybe to Annida, who has joined us virtually. I would like to confirm, is the case the same for, we know that you are pursuing also your master's degree in Utrecht University. Is it, is it the same for a master's student? And also introduce yourself maybe to begin.
So hi everyone, that was an interesting discussion already. My name is Annida. I am from batch 2017 of Airlangga, and now I'm pursuing my master's degree in legal research at Utrecht University. Yeah, there are a lot of things that are quite similar with what Aya has already described. So in Utrecht, we also use the period system. So not 8 courses in one semester, but one course in 3 months, and then we change the period and then a new course. And we also have a syllabus from the beginning that covers everything. So on that part, it's quite similar. However, we don't use the problem-based learning system in Utrecht. What we have is a separation between the lecture, which is similar to what Aya has described. It's a one-way method of teaching. I mean, you can ask questions, but it's mostly one way. So the teacher is giving the material and the students can ask questions, but usually not really. And then we have the working group or a seminar. So this can be quite similar with the problem-based learning because we are given sometimes a case or just a list of questions that we need to discuss in the classroom. But I would say the biggest difference is the fact that we don't assign roles. So from what I know is that in PBL, you're assigned certain roles, whether someone is the discussion leader or, I'm not quite sure what the roles are, but in Utrecht, this kind of working group or seminar is only led by the teacher. So I think it has pros and cons. I think the pros would be that everyone has I'm not really sure how PBL entails, but everyone can sound their opinion as well, and the teacher can directly respond to that or challenge the students. But also sometimes it can be quite unequal. Some students are super active and some students do not want to participate, especially if the class is large enough. But in my case, since I'm doing the legal research master, we're a pretty small group. So even in lectures, it tends to end up being a working group discussion. And as for the question of mandatory attendance, in Utrecht, we have similar thing that the attendance of lectures do not really interfere with grades or whether we can do the exam. However, there are some courses that implement the rule that if you miss the working group for more than 2 times, you're not allowed to resit the exam. So if you fail the exam, then you fail the course. You're not allowed to take a resit. And I think that's a fair rule because as already been discussed by the other discussants, that if you're a very bright student, then maybe you can skip the tutorial and then you don't have to resit the exam. But I think in master's degree, it's slightly different in the sense that a lot of people are doing it more voluntarily, and they have a really strong interest good job afterwards, especially in the legal research master, where it is very oriented towards academic career afterwards. So yeah, I would say in that sense, the teachers don't really need to encourage the students. The students already know that they are responsible for themselves and to maximize the learning opportunity that they have in the master. So what I would like to add maybe from what Aya has already described is the teamwork element or the value of integrity that could be different from the way it is in UNAIR. Well, for the teamwork maybe it's quite similar, so sometimes we have also papers, presentations, and moot court that we do with other students, but maybe the biggest difference is that if you do it in a European law school, in Maastricht or in Utrecht, is that you are going to work with people from different backgrounds, not only Dutch students, but also students from other European countries or other non-European countries, and sometimes it can be a challenge in terms of intercultural communication and expectations, but it can also be a very valuable learning process for you. And then as for the value of integrity or academic freedom, I would like to add a thing that is quite different from UNAIR. I know that in UNAIR we also take integrity very seriously, but in Utrecht at least, it is more institutionalized. So if someone is caught doing plagiarism or cheating, for instance, they will be taken to some type of board of examiner, and their case will be processed onwards through that institution. Whereas in UNAIR, I'm not quite sure if there is something like that now, but I think in my year, it was more based on the lecturer, and I mean, it's also not good to cheat at all, but I think having that kind of more transparent and institutionalized system to ensure integrity is slightly better than just between you and the lecturer. And then in the sense of academic freedom, I like that I feel like here we are more encouraged to be critical towards the teachers, but also the reading materials. That it is actually good if you can find something that can be criticized in a valuable way, of course. Whereas in UNAIR, I feel like the mentality of the students and the teachers are more, we just follow whatever the teacher says. Even though a lot of teachers, I know, I'm not going to take the credit from them. A lot of them in the beginning also say that it's okay to disagree with them, but maybe what it's related to what Aya has said, that the atmosphere does not feel as safe to do so. So students are less likely to be critical, while I find this kind of critical engagements and discussions very inspiring also for my work, and opens really a different way of looking at the law or looking at a certain case, which is always interesting. And also what I like, sometimes I get a lot of questions whether studying in a European law school is harder than studying in UNAIR, but actually I would say studying in UNAIR is harder. And it's because I like the way that in the European law school it is more structured, so I know how to manage my time the students. I think. I'm not sure, maybe it takes a lot of time to structure a course for teachers as well. And I think what is actually entirely different, also the fact that I'm doing a legal research master, and I think Maastricht University has a similar track, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe Dr. Sascha or Fokke can add to that. But in the legal research, I have to do one thesis and 2 research projects. So it is really all about writing papers and doing research and having extra methodology courses. So in UNAIR, you only have, in the bachelor's degree at least, I'm not quite sure with the master's, you only have one methodology, which is doctrinal. But here in Utrecht, I really learned a lot of other methodologies, like empirical legal research, comparative legal research, social legal research, and it does open my eyes to what the law can, what you can do with the law. It's not always just practicing law, but also how law can help to solve problems in society. So I find it very interesting. And yeah, I would say those are the biggest differences that I experience between studying in UNAIR and also in Utrecht. But yeah, keep in mind the fact that I'm doing a master's and also legal research.
Okay, thank you so much, Annida, for that very elaborate presentation, or rather answer. So what I noticed as well is that in European law schools, they always have a learning method similar to the PBL system. So for example, as Annida has mentioned, they have the working group method, which is also similar to the PBL system. And which brings us to the question, since all of us are students here and UNAIR has also followed suit with this kind of system, I think most of you guys here have experienced the PBL system, am I right? And so what do you think are the roles of students in particular in not only enjoying this method, but also making, contributing to the method, making it more effective for everyone involved in the method? Maybe from Kaaya first.
Well, I think PBL is all about students rather than the tutor. So of course they have like all the role in the discussion. So yeah, without the student, then there's not going to be a discussion. But yeah, so yeah, the student take the biggest role in the discussion, of course.
Okay, and in terms of maybe what they need to prepare, I mean, of course, we, as students, we cannot just come to the class and expect to solve a case without maybe conducting preliminary research maybe, or some readings. So to what extent should students be active when involved in a PBL system?
Okay, so with regard to preparation, as I stated before, we have the syllabus in Maastricht University, so we know what to prepare, which chapter to read in the textbook, which videos to watch. So we know how to answer the questions, how to solve the problem in class. But I don't think that is the case in Airlangga. I mean, some of the courses already have the syllabus, but not all of them. So yeah, I think that is something to be improved, and yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kaya. Now, for Annida, the same question. What is the role of a student, us as students, in contributing to a system, or a system similar to the PBL system, or maybe in your case, the working group system? What can we do to make the system more effective?
Yeah, I think I agree with what I said, but also maybe even though it's PBL, working group, or just a normal lecture, it's always helpful as students to prepare not only to read, but also to come to the class already with questions in your head. And so you come come to the class expecting that, okay, I'm going to learn this. What are the questions that I already have that can be maybe discussed in the class? I think that's always helpful also to spark a little discussion.
Okay, thank you, Annida. And also, one more question, maybe to the both of you. What I noticed also in that European law schools, they, like Maastricht and Utrecht, they really value academic freedom in that, for example, as you said, lecturers would bring random topics or maybe even irrelevant topics to the course and just ice break with that topic. And so as opposed to that, as what I've experienced maybe probably in classes, that is not exactly the case, and that is usually because I think, okay, wait, let me rephrase the question, I'm so sorry. But would you say that in a PBL system, the case itself that is presented to us play a huge role in that academic freedom? Because what I've noticed is that some cases are close-ended rather than open-ended. So they encourage students to answer this one question instead of explore different perspectives to the problem. Do you think the case play a huge role in a PBL system?
I want to answer that question.
Well, there's of course like a right answer to a case law, like the right way to approach the case law, but to reach that answer, to reach the correct answer, there needs to be like a discussion, which is an open-ended discussion, I might say. So I think, yeah, it plays a huge role also in the discussion. Oh, maybe I can share. There's one course, legal history, and okay, I have it here. I'm just going to read the tutorial questions. I think this is very interesting. Okay, so one of the questions is that you are a legal advisor in a case situated in the year of 167 Anno Domini. So, and imagine you live in the era of Cicero. So how would you solve the case? So that's an interesting discussion now. So of course there is a correct answer to that, but with the students' imaginations, of course, it brings up more views on the discussions in the tutorial.
Okay, Annida, maybe do you have your own perspective on this, your own take?
No, I think
Okay, I noticed, Professor Fokke, you want to add something? Yeah?
Because I think the distinction you made is not entirely correct, if you allow me to say that, because you said, okay, you have cases that are open-ended and close-ended. The nice thing of the PBL system, at least in my courses, is that I give the students a lot of cases, stories, without questions. And they are close-ended in your sense, in that sense that there is only one right answer because it's civil procedure, and mostly the answer is you have to go to that court or another court if it's about jurisdiction, but you have to see the problem. That is so interesting, because maybe in the story there are 4 problems hidden, and you don't, without a discussion, you will not see the problems. So that is the process that is going on. First you have to identify the problems, then you have to define the problems, and only then, as a group, you can start discussing them and find the only right answer. So it's more complicated than you suggested, and that's a very interesting process that we allow to take place, because it really triggers the knowledge that the student acquired by preparing, applying it to that story, listening to other students, and then you can come up with a lot of things. And what I always do is that I hide a lot of small things into that story, small, maybe Maybe a comma is enough to trigger a certain question. So there is more to it than open or close-handed.
Okay, thank you, Professor Fokke. Dr. Hardt, do you want to add something?
Not particularly. I agree with that. And what for me makes the PBL system still a little bit different from other smaller scale working group discussion based system is exactly that. And the process that not only the answers are found ideally through well, the answers are found in studying, but the answers are prepared and discussed and elaborated in a group process, but also the problems themselves, so that this translation, the act of translating a fact pattern or a lifelike scenario, anything that is found in the world, or a story into something that can be read, coded as a legal problem. That is, that's the exercise of PBL. That's the basic exercise of PBL. Which does not take away that other smaller scale working group methods have a lot of similarities to that. And all of them stand in contrast to the frontal, lecture-based model, which of course we have in a much lower measure. So when you had a course in Maastricht, I suppose you had a maximum of one lecture a week, probably less. Over the 7 weeks of the course, but you had tutorials much more frequently than that. So yeah, that would be a crucial difference. So I would, if you ask me to characterize any a particular difference with Maastricht, but also with any other system, I'm not exactly sure about all Dutch universities, because there are Dutch universities, Rotterdam, for example, which really operate a quite normal, let's say, traditional lecture-based system, but Maastricht doesn't, and Utrecht doesn't, and others also. So if you want me to elaborate on a crucial difference, it is really the active engagements, and that also is reflected in examination. Exams will look different in this system than they do. Actually, I must disclose that I haven't seen an UNAIR exam, but I'm quite confident that exams are bound to look different here from what they look like in a PBL system, because also there, at least as one of several elements of an exam, you will be confronted with a case or story or fact pattern of some sort, which you will have to translate into legal issues first. So certainly in my exams, which I hope you have in good memory, this is what happens, and this is one of the things that students are expected to be able to do, but also taught to do during the courses.
All right. Okay, now let's move on to maybe more to the fun questions, or maybe the more interesting questions. So to Kak Aya and Kak Annida, at what point at your studies and in Maastricht or at Utrecht did you think that I wouldn't have gotten this anywhere else while studying law? Maybe you could start with Kak Annida first. Okay, thank you, Kak Annida. And what about you, Kak Aya? Do you have anything, an experience maybe that struck you? that this is, I wouldn't have this anywhere else?
I think from the beginning, like from the first period in Maastricht University, in my double degree year. And first of all, as I stated before, we don't have the semester structure, we have the period structure, so I was pretty shocked back then. And also we don't have, so back in Erlangga, I studied 2 years before I went to Maastricht. I never prepared anything to go to class in Erlangga. And the fact that I have to prepare to go to class in Maastricht is just is something new for me. And and we don't have the discussion, we don't have the PBL before. Maybe now you have, like Erlangga have the PBL now, but before the LEAP program, we don't have the PBL before. So I think that's that, the PBL and the period structure.
All right, and maybe since the participants here are all, some of them are first-year students who are going to go on a double degree at some point at their studies, what would you, Kak Aya and Kak Annida, first say to them, or kesan-pesan before, for them to know what it's like to pursue a double degree program or study in a European school, European law school? Maybe mungkin ada pesan untuk mereka yang akan nantinya pergi ke Maastricht. Mungkin dari Kak Aya dulu boleh.
Maybe get used to write, because you write a lot. There's assignments and paper, and you need to write in the, I think you're familiar with the IREC structure, the issues, rules, application, and conclusion, and we also use that in Maastricht, and you need to familiarize yourself with that, with writing, and prepare before you go to class. That's it.
Could I add, am I allowed to, because I'm afraid that Kasala Pamahan will come up, because you say there are several students here who will apply for the program, who will go to Maastricht, you said. There is a restriction though, and I cannot help it. I would love to see many students from Erlangga, but our dean says every year only 2 students are allowed. So you will have to compete here at Erlangga to be allowed to go to Maastricht. Unfortunately. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe Kak Annida, you can.
Well, I think to add to that, you don't have to only do a double degree to experience studying abroad. I did also an exchange at Leiden University when I was doing my bachelor's. It's not, you will not get a degree, so maybe to go to Maastricht is still better if you can compete, but don't limit yourself. There's so many opportunities out there right now. Apply to ISMA, apply to any exchange you can. Maybe not in the Netherlands, it's also fine, but I think it is always valuable to be able to experience studying law in a different country, in a different environment, for you and also for your future.
Okay, thank you, Kak Annida. And now maybe we will move on and give the floor to Professor Fokke and also Dr. Sascha Hardt. I am informed by Dr. Radian that you are going to deliver a short presentation with regards to the double degree itself, the double degree program, and the preparations that must be done, and also the problems that students may face in their studies in Maastricht. So I give the floor to...
we can decide ourselves who's going to take the floor.
I think Dr. Sascha Hardt, you can begin.
I think for the organizational bit about the double degree, Prof. Fokke is much more qualified, because actually I'm not qualified to talk about that very much, because I have a rough idea because I have been teaching some of these students, but I'm not involved in the organization of the double degree program. So for that, I would gladly relinquish the floor to the expert.
And you don't start with the problems.
That's
your part.
Okay.
You're from the else program.
You get
I'm
the
not from the else program.
you get the fun part, and I get the problems. Okay. No. Okay. I don't. So first of all, I don't think that it's a necessity that students face any significant trouble. But of course, coming in as a double degree student or in any other capacity, because as Annida very, very correctly has pointed out, there are multiple opportunities. Use any of those, and in the end, which of them it is that brings you to another cultural context, another academic context, and just broadens your mind, ultimately doesn't matter too much as long as the broadening takes place, doesn't it? But for European law school specifically, when you come there, do a double degree program, because that's the program in which I teach. I think one thing that you should, one way or another, be prepared to do, and that you can hopefully practice here in the courses that already exist and that use the system, is to be active in class. So you will have to, on the one hand, yes, write a lot. That is correct. You will write much more than here. And these are different things: written assignments, papers, papers also that are measured to a certain degree, of course, depending on the year of study. This degree will shift, of academic standard. So you're not, Annida is in a research master, that the academic standard for the paper that you would have to write is much higher than you would encounter in the first year bachelor class, obviously. But still, the writing has to be done. It has to be accurate, and it has to be, live up to standards of integrity and so on. So if you're completely averse to writing, that might be problematic. On the other hand, it is also something that you learn and that you acquire better skills in step by step. What you should also be prepared to do is be active orally in class. It's a discussion-based system. Everybody is expected to participate, and depending on how nasty or helpful, depending on how you see it, your tutor is, they will poke you, and they will prompt you to be active as much as they can. Obviously, ideally not in an unfriendly way and not in too pushy a way, but it is expected of students to participate, because it's the students who make these groups work in any significant way, and not participating is an option, but not for long. And that can be challenging, even though I must say those double degree students from Airlangga and also from UGM that I've had in my own classes, they did not have a significant problem with that. So I think the pre-selection, or just the intention to go there and work in such a system, probably already does the trick. So most of them were absolutely fine in that regard. A problem that has, well, a problem that transcends all the talk about what system you study in, whether you do PBL or anything else, is the simple fact that when you go abroad to study there, you do study in a different language. I'm not saying, because this is not reality, that your English needs to be absolutely perfect, C2 level on the European reference framework. That is not the case, and it's hardly the case for many of the students in the over 70 different nationalities that we have in the European law school program. But it should be sufficient already at the beginning to not be completely lost or drown, and that is not a it's not a threat or anything. It is just a call to be realistic with your own self-assessment. Your language skills should be sufficient to follow an academic program in English. That does not require perfection, but it does require that you're able to communicate effectively, to read at reasonable speed, to write without too many errors, and to communicate just about anything that you want to communicate. if you can do that, that's fine. If you can't do that, or if you feel you can't do that to a sufficient degree yet, try to brush up your language skills before you go, because that helps a great deal. And I don't see this only with Indonesian students. I see this with my, I don't know, Italian students and Bulgarian students and wherever they're from. And sometimes even with students from Great Britain, you know, that the ability to read and write and orally communicate effectively in English is really crucial to this study. Annida mentioned one point which I think is interesting, and it can become a thing, and that is you will, especially at Maastricht in the European Law School program in which your double degree takes place, you will encounter a good deal of sort of intercultural situations, inevitably, because it happens all the time that you have a tutorial group of 14, 15 people with 10 different nationalities. So you will study together with a German, an Estonian, a Spanish, an American, I don't know what. And of course, communication in that kind of group is fun and interesting on the one hand, but it's also a bit challenging and sometimes quite tiring, because people just have to explain to each other not only what they're talking about, but also how they are talking about things, and that this can sometimes be quite different, and you know, attitudes that are being communicated with what you say. And so I think Annida probably has closer to hand examples, because I'm on the teacher's role, so I don't see all of these situations as closely, but I do know they exist. This can be very enriching, but also very, very tiring at times. So, and that's something I think you should just be mentally prepared for. As far as one can be mentally prepared for that, I'm not sure if that's even possible, but expect it, anyways. Do I have more? Well, oh yes, one thing. Problem-based learning, or the system we use in Maastricht, requires a good deal of initiative, because students have to take ownership of the learning process. We have heard so much about it that I don't have to repeat it. But it also comes with something that students are not made to do, or that nobody supervises you doing, and that is structure and organize your own time. For me as a student, that was quite difficult. I was a student in the same university, and I had to really, really learn that before I got into it, because nobody's telling you when to do what, and most of the week you don't have class. So you have usually 2 courses, each of which have maybe 2 contact hours plus a lecture, so that makes it 4, 8, 12 hours of actual presence or mandatory presence at the campus a week, which leaves the other supposed 28 hours of a full-time study, or let it be 20, if you're a good student, free. And it means that you can organize your time, but also that you must organize your time in an effective way yourselves. Nobody is going to tell you when to do things. I personally ended up doing a lot of things during the night, and for me that appears to have worked. But people will have to find their way in this, and this can be difficult. I'm not really sure how this compares to Airlangga, but it is something that I notice about our own system. And maybe lastly, with a bit of a grain of salt, not to be taken too seriously, but then again, when I see the double degree students, maybe it is to be taken seriously. Prepare for cold weather, and extended periods of cold weather. That's not to be underestimated, and it might have an effect on, you know, on how you feel in the winter months. Am I right? Yeah. No, that happens. But do not be discouraged by any of this. It is I genuinely believe it is a great experience, as much as it is a great experience for me to come here and do these things. Don't be discouraged. Come over and be taught at our universities.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hardt. And now we will give the floor to Professor Fokke, who will explain about the double degree program itself.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We
You're
started with the double degree program with UKM in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. There's no quota for UKM. In that first year we had 2 students and we learned a lot from it. One of the 2 had a cultural problem because the Netherlands is not a religious country. So every religion is tolerated, but we don't change the rules for religion. We don't change the rules for religion. The rules are the same for anyone. So his problem was that he was more religious than his parents, and that interfered often with his classes, etc. Especially in the Ramadan period, which fell in somewhere in spring in that time. I don't remember, or it was in the first semester somewhere. In the Netherlands, light starts, so dawn starts at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the sun sets at 11 o'clock in the evening. So if you're very strict there, then you have a tough period in the Ramadan period compared to Indonesia. We don't adapt the rules for that, so you have to take that into account. You will need some flexibility. Classes are just planned around 12 o'clock on Friday. They are there. Maybe you can apply for another class, but they are there. So take that into account. That's the first thing we learned, that we really have to tell that to the students. The second thing we learned is that there are some students, and there was the other one in the first year, who are confronted in Europe with a lot of kebebasan, a lot of freedom compared to Indonesia. Here there are many rules that you should abide with that we don't have in the Netherlands. And for some people that comes first as a shock, but then they follow the new culture, and that is a problem for their academic discipline. So the second student, who was the best student ever in Jakarta in her school, best student ever, she failed because she profited too much of all the freedom and didn't work anymore. So from that year we learned we have to be better in checking who is allowed to follow the program. In 2017, no one came. I don't know why. 2018, we had 4 students from UKM. Wonderful. They all finished the double degree, because the funny thing of the double degree, and that's why it's a wonderful program, and you cannot compare it with any master anywhere in the world or any exchange program. You study 4 years, just as you do here at Airlangga, but at the end you get 2 degrees. You have 2 ijazah, 2 diplomas. The Dutch Bachelor, European Law Studies, and the Bachelor here from Indonesian Law. So that's wonderful. So you get 2 diplomas in the same time. You have to work for it, but that's the nice thing. And they all finished their study in 4 years in total. How do we do that? How do we get the situation that you study only once and you are rewarded twice? That's because it can only be done with an international program, the IUP, as they have at UKM and they have here. The European Law Studies is an international program too. So there is an enormous overlap between the courses we have in Maastricht and the courses you have at Airlangga or at UKM. So therefore those courses can count double. That meant that we introduced the following system. The first year you have to finish with a sufficient high grade. It is in the agreement. I think it is at 3.5 nilai in, I don't know exactly how it works, but you can ask for that. You need at least that to finish your first year here, and then you're accepted at Maastricht University. The second and the third year, you study for 2 years at Maastricht University, only there. You don't do anything at Airlangga. Then in the 4th year, you go back, because you have to do your KKN, and of course, you missed all kinds of courses that are taught here at Airlangga and are not taught in Maastricht. So in the 4th year, you will get a special program where Airlangga will check what you missed, and there are a lot of things you didn't miss because you had the Dutch courses, and then you follow those courses at Airlangga. We, on our side, make a conversion. And the conversion is because we count in the Netherlands with ECTS. To get your bachelor degree, you need 180 ECTS. Here you count with SKS. So that's different, but we have a fixed conversion rate. Whatever happens in those courses, you get 1.5 ECTS for 1 SKS. 1.5 is the factor. So you can just make your calculation, and then you can see if you had enough ECTS to get your degree. The KKN doesn't count. Courses that are very far away from what we do in the Netherlands do not count either, but that until now did not happen. So I think we recognize in the end all the courses. And there is, of course, the scriptie. There is a small problem in the scriptie because here in Indonesia, at least at UKM, the scriptie should contain at least 25,000 words, whereas in our faculty, the maximum is 10,000 words. We don't want endless citations from literature, etc. We want students to be to the point. We have an agreement that ensures that there is a balance, so from both sides we are a bit tolerant, so that it can be a bit shorter on this side, a bit longer on our side. And normally you get, I think, only 8 ECTS for a thesis in our bachelor program, but since you're in the double degree program and you do a bit more, because it's a bit longer, you get 12 ECTS. And that makes the circle round. In total, you then get to 180 ECTS. So that's the system, how it works, and that's the way you get the 2 degrees. Since we had those problems in the beginning, we started to improve the selection process. At the moment, the selection process is as follows. In the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, we define what the level of English should be in relation to the test that you can take, say the TOEFL test and other tests. It's rather high. It's 550 TOEFL online, I think, and there are many other options. So you just have to check it, but that already ensures a little bit that your English is sufficient. But Sascha was rather liberal, but in the selection process we are not that liberal. So first of all, you have to meet that requirement. But that is not enough. And I don't know if Airlangga did it the way I wanted, but we require from each student that he will write in half an hour without any possibility of talking with others, going online or whatever. He writes a short piece, short essay of 500 words on a subject that is given on the spot. So you cannot prepare for the subject, you just get the subject. The problem with the new capital, I think was last year, the new capital of Indonesia. And you have 500 words in English. Those essays are submitted to us in Maastricht because we want to check whether your English is good enough, and sometimes are rejected candidates, I have to say, because I say, well, that's very nice, you pass the TOEFL test, but when it comes to writing yourself, I see that you are not capable of developing a way of reasoning that is convincing or comprehensible. That's the requirement, that is comprehensible in English that is sufficiently good. So that's an important part of the test. Since we had a problem with the first 2 students, there's also a psychological test. You will be tested psychologically, where the psychologist will see if you will be capable to adapt to a new way of living in a completely other culture, in a completely other setting, with completely other academic requirements. Because you have to be tough for that, tough enough. That is the third part of the admission. The second part. There is a third part, and that's an interview here at Airlangga to see what your motivation is. Part of that is also a motivation letter, which is also sent to me, but the motivation interview, in principle we don't do it. So Airlangga makes a selection but submits everything to us. Then we get from Erlanga the advice to admit the student, the specific student, to the program. And then we check things, and when we hesitate, well, I told you I rejected students because of their written test, not good enough, we should not do it, because we do not do you a pleasure to admit you. If you have so many difficulties writing, it will be a catastrophe, and probably you will fail too many courses in the first year, because resits cannot be taken endlessly, and we have to take into account that after 2 years, if you still have to do resits after the second year in Maastricht, then you have a problem, because you will be back at Erlanga and you have to do the resit in Maastricht. And our Board of Examiners does not allow you to take the resit online. So then you will have to take the airplane just to come to the Netherlands for that those one or two exams. That's not very nice. So we don't want to see that that situation occurs. That's why you should, we are strict when it comes to admitting students. Sometimes we have an additional interview on the Maastricht site, and that is of course via the internet. So an online interview just to check, okay, what's your motivation exactly, and how do you see the problems yourself? Did you realize what you will face once you are there? And then you will get a good impression. As I already told, our dean is very strict, because there are many other universities that want to join this program. There is a solo university, we have the UI even, that wants to join the program. And we have some smaller universities, but our dean says no. Our dean says no. No more students under this program. So it's, as regards Erlanga, it's 2 and not more. That's sad, because maybe this year you have 3 excellent candidates, because I have to say, we had the 2 problems, but most students coming to the Netherlands, they are very good. They're motivated and they're very good. We had a student from 2019. She passed all the courses with, we work with a scale from 1 to 10, with 9s or 10s, no other grades, and she won a prize with her bachelor essay, with her scriptie, a prize. So, the prize, the yearly prize for the best scriptie. So they are that good, Indonesian students. So there's in itself no problem, but the dean is very strict. So it's 2 and not more. So if there are more than 2 candidates here at Erlanga who qualify, then the problem will have to be solved at this site. We are not going to solve that problem. So if there are any questions, we'll see. But I think this is the technical part that should be communicated. Did I leave anything out? No. That would be important? No, because maybe for the thesis that you have 2 supervisors. You have a supervisor on the Dutch side and on the Indonesian side. They should collaborate, but sometimes they just approve the scriptie without ever talking with each other, because they just read the text. And it should be in English, of course. Maybe that's important to supervisors. Yeah? No other problems that you encountered? Well, nobody talks about costs here. It's expensive, the Netherlands. Realize. Very good that Sascha talked about the temperature. You know, we have an energy crisis in Europe now, so the temperature of the faculty went down with 3 degrees from 21 to 18. And maybe it will still be lowered, because we cannot pay anymore for the gas that we need to heat our buildings. No, it's a real problem. Everybody is wearing their sweaters.
Could invest in insulation, just saying.
So that's, take it into account. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Fokke. And I believe that the first year students here at UNAIR will take that into consideration for them to compete next year in the selection process. And with that, we will now move on to the Q&A session. And maybe just one question for both Professor Fokke and Dr. Sascha Hardt, as I was informed that they will attend an agenda after this. But we can definitely continue with more questions with Aqiila and Annida if warranted. So I will open the floor to any questions. Any questions? Yaudah. Maybe the first year students? No?
Either we were very clear or very
Very
discouraging.
clear cut, yes. All right. I will count from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, seeing none. Maybe, yeah, Paradin, do you want to escort? No.
Maybe I can
Yeah.
say one thing. So if you don't have a question right now, but you might have one in the future, which relates to not so much the organization, but anything in the study program in which we teach, do always feel free to mail me. You find my email address online. You can also ask around. There are enough people here who have my email address. So feel free to mail me with any question that you might have. Huh? No problem.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Professor Fokke and Dr. Sascha Hardt, for your time and for being here with us today. Let's give them a huge round of applause, everyone. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much for organizing. Yeah, thank you very much for this. And success finalizing your script. Thank you. And your program until now.
Ini akan dilanjutkan oleh Arya untuk mungkin langsung sama Mbak Aya sama Annida. Masih sekitar 15 menit lagi, waktunya masih ada ya. Arya akan melanjutkan.
We need your courses, the course materials, and the grades.
Okay.
So, but normally in the end of the year, of course, but take that into account because with UPM, quite often the course materials are very vague. And then on our side, someone says, no, we want to, they should be more precise about what is to be prepared. So tell your lecturers here.
I'm planning to finish my thesis and graduate, so not by the end of the semester. So
It's next semester normally. Oh, you're already now in
yeah,
December?
because I already finished all my courses and now
Here, at
yeah.
Airlangga. Oh, great. Oh, so you can prepare now and
Okay.
you can send it to
And I'll
us.
give it to you, or
Yeah, then better send it to me and I
Okay.
will
so
I
on
will
the
forward
course
it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, all the courses with the materials
Okay.
and the description. So what is materials, description, name of the course, of course, the lecturer, and your grade. Yeah, and SKS, the number of credits, very important. Because I don't think you're the first one from Airlangga. Yeah, Airlangga. So we did. So at UPM now we had a lot of students and they did a lot of different courses. So the new students they say, oh, that course you already know and that one you know. So that's a lot easier. But you're the first one, so you're going to face some problems. But we are going to solve them. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you very much for moderating. Very nice. Thank you very much. And have a good rest of the session.
Okay, with Professor Fokke and Dr. Sascha Hardt out of the way, maybe we can continue the Q&A session with Kak Aya and Kak Annida. If anyone of you is curious about studying abroad and Europe especially, you can ask them now. I think, is Kak Annida still with us? Hello, Kak Annida.
Hi.
Okay. Any questions? Anyone? Oh, okay, yes. Wait, hold on. Pandu, can you help me? Yeah, you can ask in bahasa or bahasa or English.
Oke. Halo Kak Aya. So aku Pamela dari angkatan 2019. I want to ask about the system that you told, kayak kita bisa milih PBL atau kayak classical class gitu. Kalau Kak Aya sendiri tuh Kak Aya lebih prefer PBL class atau classical class, Terus kira-kira PBL kelasnya nih sistemnya sama nggak kayak yang di UNAIR gitu, yang kayak kita, maksudnya tetap kita jalan sendiri, tapi kayak dosennya ngawasin atau kayak they just let us do anything we can, yang penting kita solving the problem gitu, gitu Kak.
Pertama aku mau jelasin dulu, tadi itu bukan kita bisa pilih PBL atau classical, tapi emang disediain, emang teaching method di Maastricht itu dibagi jadi 2. Jadi ada lecture sama tutorials, itu pertama. Terus kalau aku pribadi, aku tuh lebih milih PBL daripada lectures, karena aku tipe orang yang belajarnya itu, gimana ya, aku juga bingung. Aku lebih pilih PBL karena materi-materinya tuh lebih melekat gitu loh di otak. Kalau misalkan lecture kan kita kayak didikte gitu kan sama lecturersnya. Kalau misalkan PBL kan kita yang riset sendiri, kita yang kerja sendiri, kita yang gitu sendiri. Jadi lebih keserap materinya gitu. Terus masalah apakah enggak dengan UNAIR, aku nggak tahu UNAIR gimana, mungkin Arya atau Pamela bisa jelasin yang di UNAIR PBL-nya gimana.
Oh ya, kalau aku udah ngambil kelas sih, aku udah ngambil kelas sih Kak, cuma dari PBL yang terakhir aku ikutin kan by Zoom gitu. Jadi tuh kayak kita dibagi ke breakout room, kayak tapi at the first kayak kita dikasih kaspos, terus kita disuruh baca mungkin selama 5 menit atau mungkin kita dikasih H-1, terus baru nanti kita udah dibagi kelompok, kayak kelompoknya ini kita milih notulen dan pemimpin diskusi, terus kita kayak harus kita solving kayak isu hukum yang ada di kaspus gitu. Jadi kayak hasil akhirnya diminta nanti tuh laporan terkait dengan gimana sih pendapatnya satu kelompok ini gitu.
Oke. Mungkin sama, tapi yang perbedaan dari yang aku dengar, perbedaannya itu pertama problemnya itu kita udah dapat dari 1 minggu atau 2 minggu sebelum course dimulai. Jadi sebelum periode baru dimulai, sebelum academic year dimulai, itu kita udah dapat. Jadi kita udah bisa prepare dari jauh-jauh hari, itu udah bisa. Terus habis itu apa tadi aku mau ngomong? Terus apa sih? Lupa gue. Laporan, kita nggak ada submit laporan, nggak, jadi kita nggak diwajibin untuk buat laporan atau apa. Jadi hasil akhirnya ya udah kita discuss di tutorial, yang ada di tutorial ya udah kita catat sendiri tapi buat kita sendiri, udah gitu aja sih. Itu bedanya sih yang paling signifikan.
Oke, thank you Kak.
Oke, terima kasih Kak Aya. Mungkin ada yang mau tanya lagi yang lain, silahkan mungkin ya sebelah situ.
Yeah, okay. Hello, my name is Bimo. I'm from IUP 20. I want to ask, since you talk a lot of advantages studying at Maastricht, is there any disadvantages to study at Maastricht?
Okay, are there any disadvantages of studying in Maastricht? Or maybe let me generalize this question to also include Annida. Is there any disadvantages of studying maybe in a European law school like Utrecht or Maastricht? Maybe any disadvantage to take it for us to take into consideration. Mungkin dari Kak Annida dulu boleh?
I think, of course, for everything there will be advantages and disadvantages. I would say, first of all, you have to see what your plans are for the future. Jadi kalian di belajar hukum itu buat apa? Misalnya kalau kalian pengen jadi jaksa di Indonesia gitu, mungkin ya pasti punya pengalaman lebih luar negeri itu lebih naik plus, tapi mungkin nggak terlalu sepenting itu kalau kalian pengen jadi jaksa di Indonesia. Lebih baik kalian mungkin internship atau ikut kegiatan yang lain gitu. Dan tadi udah dijelasin juga kan bahwa it's not cheap. I'm not sure if there's any type of scholarship for double degree, but especially for double degree it's not cheap. Jadi kalau kalian memang nggak ada orientasi ke hukum inter atau pengen fokus di hukum Indonesia, mungkin lebih baik investasi di hal yang lain. I would say that will be a disadvantage. Kalau ya disadvantage yang kecil-kecil sih, of course it's very challenging. But yeah, at the end of the day, it depends on what you're looking for.
Alright, thank you Kak Annida. Mungkin Kak Aya bisa menambahkan?
Mbak Annida udah kayak cover semua disadvantages-nya sih. Tapi yang mungkin aku bisa tambahin, yang specifically di European Law School di Maastricht University, yang double degree itu, gimana sih? Yang kalau kita double degree kan kita masuknya ke European Law School, bukan ke Law School, bukan ke Dutch Law School-nya. Jadi kita nggak bisa jadi lawyer di Eropa. Maksudnya kita nggak bisa jadi law practitioner, karena untuk jadi lawyer di Eropa itu kita harus punya bachelor degree dari national law. Jadi kalau misalkan mau jadi lawyer di Belanda kita harus punya bachelor degree in Dutch law. Terus kedua kita harus punya master degree. Itu dua-duanya. Jadi kalau misalkan ILS program, pure ILS program, kita bisa jadi lawyer di Indonesia tapi kita nggak bisa praktis di Belanda gitu. Itu aja sih.
Oke, thank you Bimo untuk pertanyaannya, sudah jelas?
Sudah.
Oke, terima kasih. Mungkin ada waktu untuk 1 atau 2 pertanyaan lagi. Ada yang mau bertanya mungkin? Yang bertanya dapat botol souvenir.
Berarti aku dapat ya?
Lagi? Hah?
Enggak.
Iya, siapa yang ada yang mau bertanya lagi mungkin? Mungkin dari angkatan 2022. Boleh dibantu tolong.
Oke, thank you. Jadi nama aku Aqiila dari batch 2020. Mungkin nanyanya ke Kak Nida ya, related to master program. Kalau misalnya di Utrecht atau di Belanda mungkin in general, itu specialization yang khas atau yang bagus dipelajari di Belanda apa? Mungkin yang kayak kita nggak dapat Indonesia, atau yang kayak emang kalau ini bagusnya belajar di Belanda gitu. Sama kayak kalau misalnya kita graduate dari master program yang di Belanda itu kayak apakah banyak opportunity untuk bekerja di law firm yang di Europe, kayak bukan jadi praktisi, karena kalau jadi praktisi kayak tadi yang dibilang kakaknya kan butuh license yang dari Belanda kan, tapi kayak ya kerja aja gitu di law firm yang gitu. Makasih ya.
Silakan Kak Annida.
Makasih buat pertanyaannya. Kalau buat master's degree sih, kalau di Belanda yang terkenal, kalau hukum inter, public international law, itu di Leiden bagus juga, di Belanda in general bagus, tapi kalau di Leiden lebih dekat sama courts, international courts. Jadi kalau kalian tertarik di international law, international criminal law, it's nice to study in the Netherlands because you can also do an internship in ICC or ICJ or any other type of international courts here. Tapi juga banyak banget kok master-master yang tergantung your interest. So for example, there's also law and technology, something like that. And for me personally, I do legal research. That's also something that is not very common. That's why I chose to do it here. Kalau buat pilihan karir di Eropa setelah master, bisa banget kamu kerja di law firm sebagai consultant, kayak gitu bisa. But it's usually related to international law, of course, like arbitration, maybe or some international private law. Terus bisa juga kerja di perusahaan. So here in Europe, since they have GDPR, the Data Protection Regulation, mereka tuh butuh banyak banget karyawan buat regulatory data protection. And I know some people who do their masters in law and technology here, who manage to find a job in big companies as a data protection officer. So that's also an option. And of course, you can always be an academician, be in academics, because fun fact, di European Law School itu dosen-dosen kalian juga nggak cuma dari Europe, but there are a lot of lecturers from all over the world. So it is an option to actually maybe continue for a PhD and build an academic career in Europe.
Okay, thank you Kak Annida. Does that answer your question? Okay. Great then. Karena ini waktunya sudah mendekati jam 4, once again, oh ya mungkin sebelum itu kita akan terima kasih banyak ke Kak Aya dan juga Kak Annida yang bersedia hadir di acara sore, atau mungkin buat Kak Annida ini siang gitu ya, atau pagi hari ini. Mungkin untuk Kak Aya, panitia bisa membantu untuk memberikan token of appreciation untuk Kak Aya terlebih dahulu. Oke, jadi untuk token of appreciation-nya untuk Kak Aya nanti akan diberikan. Jadi secara simbolis aja di sini. Terima kasih banyak Kak Aya udah menjadi narasumber. Dan untuk Kak Annida, tadi I was informed that Paradian is going to arrange also a token of appreciation for you as well. So we will only do a virtual symbolic handover of the token. Okay. Thank you for, again, I've said thank you 3 times now. Thank you for the both of you. Udah bersedia untuk menjadi narasumber. Dan selanjutnya, I hope that this exchange today could assist law students such as ourselves here at Universitas Airlangga to expand their knowledge and apply the lessons learned from European law schools, and in particular Maastricht and Utrecht University. My name is Arya, and as today's moderator, and apologize for any misspoken words. Thank you, and see you next session. Thank you, Kak Annida. Thank you, Kak Aya. Bye-bye, thank you. Oke. Terima kasih para peserta sudah hadir. Acara sudah selesai dan dipersilakan untuk meninggalkan ruangan. Jangan lupa yang belum absen, mungkin di depan tadi ada yang miss. Tolong absen dulu ya.
Permisi, buat teman-teman yang tadi udah bertanya bisa langsung menemui saya ya. 3 orang tadi yang bertanya di sini bisa menemui saya. Thank you.